It began on a summer night that should have been ordinary. I was 18, fresh out of school, with nothing much to do except waste away the long hours playing video games, scrolling through YouTube, or just lying around. My parents had gone out of town for a few days, leaving me with the whole house to myself. It wasn't unusual. They trusted me. I had the keys, the fridge was stocked, and the silence of an empty home was something I had grown used to. But that night was different. I remember the clock flashing 11:47 p.m. in bright red numbers on my nightstand. The summer heat was pressing against the windows, but the air in my room felt strangely cold, like someone had left a door open somewhere. I shrugged it off and turned the volume higher on my game. Nothing seemed unusual, at least until I heard it. A knock. Not a polite tap, not the wind against the siding, a slow, deliberate knock on the front door. At first, I froze. Nobody was supposed to be here. I hadn't ordered food, and all my friends knew better than to come by this late without calling first. My phone was lying face up beside me, and there were no missed calls, no texts, just silence. The knock came again. 3 sharp thuds, echoing through the empty house. I pulled my headphones off and sat there, listening, every nerve in my body tightening. My first thought was that maybe it was a neighbor, or maybe some kids messing around. But something about the rhythm of that knock didn't feel playful. It felt intentional. I forced myself to get up, every step down the hall sounding louder than it should have in the stillness of the night. When I reached the front door, I hesitated. The porch light was already on, but through the peephole, I saw nothing. Just empty space. No one was there. My stomach knotted. I unlocked the door anyway, just to check. Slowly, I opened it, letting the warm night air wash over me. The porch was empty. The driveway was empty. The street was silent. Not even the crickets were making noise. It was too quiet. I stepped out onto the porch, scanning the shadows, my bare feet pressing against the rough wood. "Hello?" I called out, my voice sounding thin against the stillness. Nothing answered. I stood there for a long moment, then shook my head and went back inside, locking the door behind me. I told myself it was just kids, or maybe I had imagined the whole thing. But when I turned back down the hallway, I saw something that made my blood freeze. My bedroom light was on. I hadn't left it on. I know I hadn't. I could see the faint glow spilling out from under my door, like a silent invitation. My chest tightened as I stood there, staring. Slowly, I began walking back, each step heavier than the last. My hand trembled as I turned the doorknob and pushed the door open. The room was empty, completely empty. No one was inside, but the lamp beside my bed was glowing softly. I swallowed hard, trying to convince myself that maybe I had forgotten turning it off earlier. That had to be it. I turned the switch, plunging the room into darkness, and crawled back into bed, pulling the blanket tighter around me. But sleep didn't come. Instead, a strange unease gnawed at me. It wasn't just the knock on the door or the light, it was the silence. The house, which normally creaked and whispered like all houses do, was still, unnaturally still. At some point, I must have dozed off, because the next thing I remember is waking up to the sound of breathing. Not my own. Slow, steady breathing, coming from the corner of my room. My eyes shot open, my heart hammering in my chest. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe. The sound was faint but unmistakable. Someone was there, standing in the shadows, breathing quietly, watching me. I told myself not to look, that if I didn't look, it wouldn't be real. But curiosity and terror forced my eyes toward the corner. And that's when I saw it. Figure, tall, motionless, its outline barely visible in the faint moonlight filtering through the blinds. I couldn't make out a face, but I knew it was watching me. For what felt like hours, I lay frozen, staring into that corner, praying I was imagining it. But then, It moved. Not a step, not a gesture, just a small shift of its head, like it was tilting, curious, studying me. That was enough. I bolted upright, fumbling for the lamp, my fingers shaking as they slammed the switch on. The room lit up in an instant. The corner was empty. There was nothing there. I was gasping, my body drenched in sweat, my mind spinning. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. I stayed awake, lights on, staring at the corner until the sun finally rose, and the figure, if it had ever been there at all, was gone. But the next night, it came back. I woke up the next morning with a strange heaviness pressing against my chest. At first, I thought it was just the weight of exhaustion, but then I remembered the shadow. That thing standing in my room last night. The memory jolted me upright, my heart pounding like a drum inside my ribcage. The sunlight streaming through the window felt weak, almost sickly, as if the day itself was poisoned. I told myself it was a nightmare, my mind playing tricks after too many sleepless nights. But the more I tried to convince myself, the more that icy feeling returned, the same dread that had crawled across my skin when I saw those eyes in the dark. The house was silent, too silent. My parents' old house had always creaked and sighed with the wind, the plumbing, the shifting of its ancient bones. But that morning, nothing. The silence was suffocating, so thick that I found myself whispering out loud just to break it. "Hello?" My voice didn't echo. It just died, swallowed by the air. I stumbled into the kitchen, hoping coffee would bring me back to reality. But as I reached for the cupboard, I noticed something strange. The kitchen window, once bright and open, was completely blacked out. Not covered, not curtained. Just black, as if someone had painted over it with the absence of light itself. I froze. My breath quickened. Slowly, I reached forward and pressed my hand against the glass. It was ice cold, colder than winter. When I pulled my hand away, condensation clung to my skin. But it wasn't water. It was thick, almost tar-like. That's when I heard a faint scratching sound from behind me. I spun around. The hallway leading to my bedroom was dark, even though every light in the house should have been on. The scratching grew louder, like nails dragging against wood. Each sound echoed inside me, vibrating through my bones. "Who's there?" I asked, though my voice cracked like a child's. The scratching stopped. Then, slowly, footsteps. They weren't human footsteps. Too heavy, too deliberate. Each step sent vibrations through the floorboards. The air grew colder, and my breath became visible in the middle of summer. I backed away, reaching for the drawer where the kitchen knives were kept. But before I could grab one, the footsteps stopped. Dead silence. I stood there, clutching the edge of the counter, waiting. My pulse pounded in my ears. And then, knock, knock, knock. 3 sharp knocks on the kitchen door behind me. The back door that led into the yard. I turned slowly. At first, I saw nothing. The frosted glass in the door was warped, blurring whatever might be outside. But then a shape appeared. Tall, broad, wrong. It loomed against the glass, unmoving, as though it knew I was staring back. The knocks came again, this time louder. I stepped back, shaking my head. No, this isn't real. But the voice in my head, the one that had whispered to me last night, returned. A low, guttural growl that slithered through my skull. "Let me in." The words weren't spoken out loud. They were inside me, gnawing at the edges of my sanity. My vision blurred, my ears rang, and every instinct screamed at me to run. But my body betrayed me. My legs moved forward against my will, each step dragging me closer to the door. My hand lifted, trembling, reaching for the lock. "No!" I screamed, forcing myself back. With everything I had, I yanked my hand away and fell to the floor. The voice growled louder, angrier, echoing inside my skull until it felt like my head would split open. "You cannot stop me." The shape at the door dissolved into black smoke, seeping through the cracks in the frame, slithering into the kitchen like a living shadow. I crawled backward, kicking against the floor, but the smoke followed. It poured across the ceiling, the walls, the floor, surrounding me. The temperature dropped so fast my skin prickled with frostbite. And then it formed. The shadow condensed into a figure. Tall, faceless, with long, twisted limbs. Its head tilted unnaturally, almost curious, as though studying me like an insect. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. My throat locked, strangled by fear. The figure leaned down, close enough that I could feel the cold radiating from its body. Where its face should have been, there were only 2 deep pits of darkness. And in that darkness, something moved, shapes writhing, like hands clawing from the inside. "Why me?" I whispered, finally finding my voice. The figure didn't answer. Instead, it reached out one long, jagged hand. Its fingers hovered just inches from my chest, and I swear I felt my heart slow, like it was being pulled toward its touch. My vision dimmed, the edges of the world fading into black. Then, all at once, the front door slammed open. A rush of wind blew through the house, scattering the shadow like ashes. The figure dissolved, shrieking in a voice that was both thunder and whispers, before vanishing into nothing. I lay there gasping, clutching my chest. The air warmed. The silence broke. For a moment, I thought I was safe. But when I looked toward the hallway mirror, my blood ran cold. The reflection staring back wasn't me. It wore my face, but the eyes were black pits, writhing with the same shadows I had just seen. And it smiled, a smile I couldn't control. And then the voice returned, softer this time, but clearer than ever. "You let me in.